Kelsey. I'm back with another scrapbooking process video. Today is scrap 5 and our recipe is to use a sketch, which you will see in a minute. We have to use some kind of technique, either tearing, stitching, something like that, pattern paper background. We have to use a themed collection for a not themed or an off theme layout, and we have to use a number as part of our title. So you guys know I'm scrapbooking wedding pictures all month long, so this was kind of tricky to find a themed collection that could work for wedding but not be totally crazy. I recently used this meow collection from My Mind's Eye, and it is the cat themed collection in the scrapbooking world, in my opinion. Lots of cat stuff. So I decided I would use that one because the colors are kind of what I'm working with this month. A lot of pinks, blacks, grays, and I thought there were enough patterns in that collection that weren't specifically cat. So not getting a literal cat on the scrapbook page just because it is wedding. I don't want to put cats on my my wedding pictures just for a challenge, but I did really want to use a very specific themed collection for a wedding page. So I kind of went through and found the papers that were more subtle. I have this asterisk paper, I have this ball of yarn paper, a couple different stripes, and I'm just pulling in these two photos of our wedding bands, and that's what I'm going to document on this one. I thought those photos were neutral enough where I could kind of have fun with the pink and the black. And you guys know, if you saw my layout last month when I used this collection, I really love matting everything in black. It makes it look so bold and I want to do that again. So right away you can see I trimmed down this pink asterisk paper as my background. I trimmed it down a tiny bit. I used my corner rounder punch on the edges and I matted it on a solid piece of black. I love that thin black outline and having the interest of those rounded corners. And then same as my sketch, I'm going to do some faux stitching around all of the outside of this layout. So I'm just using my ruler and a black pen to do that. And then I will kind of start composing the layers that are in the sketch. I'm following the sketch pretty closely. So I'm just trying to figure out which papers I'm going to use for which layers. And I want to keep that same technique of matting everything in black just for a fun kind of pop. So I'm almost done with the faux stitching. I think the faux stitching looks extra cool because I do have the rounded corners. I think it just accentuates those and it's really fun. And now that the background's done, I'm going to go ahead and mat my photos. I had two 4x6s, but I did decide to trim one of them into a 3x3. Just because there was a lot of dead space in the photo, and I figured if I'm going to use two pictures of kind of the same thing, I really didn't need both of them to be big pictures, and I really liked how in that sketch there's different sized photos. So this kind of also goes off of the sketch in that way. I matted them both in the black. I'm going to overlap them like this, and I'm going to start with my horizontal layers. There's a couple horizontal layers in the sketch. So I decided I would use this skinny black and white stripe as the big horizontal layer, and then part of the gray and white kind of messy stripe. I'm just going to trim a piece of the gray, kind of almost like a branding strip size strip, to be that skinny piece that is in the sketch that also runs horizontal. So I think I'm just trying to figure out what papers I want where. I did go to my stash because I felt like I needed another pattern, and I had this scrap of this black and white heart from my Felicity Jane stuff, but I actually don't think I end up needing that one. I brought it in as a layer to follow the sketch, and then I think it's because the white isn't as white as the Meow Collection's white, so it's reading a little cream and it's just messing with my eye a little bit. So I end up taking that heart paper back off, but it sits there for a little bit while I get the layers I know I'm going to use down. And again, I'm just matting everything in that skinny black. I think that's really fun. And this is where I go in with the gray and white stripe. And I just trimmed off a piece of the gray. I'm going to mat that in black too, to be the little skinny strip that goes underneath those photos. The biggest thing here is trying to figure out what I'm going to do for the decorative parts of that sketch. There's an area where there's a circle layer. There is this decorative edge on the bottom of the page that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to replicate. I love this sketch because one of the layers that come up at the top have a notebook edge punch, which I think is always really fun. I haven't used my notebook edge punch in a while, but I don't really know what papers I'm going to use for all of those different things, so it takes me a minute to kind of figure it out. But here are the horizontal pieces I'm gluing down. I think that looks really cool. I just love the hard lines and how the bold black kind of interrupts everything. I just think it looks really cool. And now that I have trimmed it in, I've cut into this gray and white stripe, I'm going to use this as another layer too, just so that gray stripe that's in that skinny piece has some other gray to balance it out. So I'm using the gray and white stripe as the big layer behind the photos. Again, I will matte that in black as well. And that's going to be kind of just stuck top and bottom of these layers, so it looks like a longer piece than it is. But I kind of needed that base layer before I could figure out what I did for all the other kind of fun elements. But I think I end up pulling in some heart vellum. I think my mom gave me this piece of heart vellum. And I just thought, it's a black and white print. It's vellum, so it's softer, it's translucent. You can see the pattern through it. And I thought that would be a really cool thing to kind of use to create the circle and the torn edge and the detail on the bottom. Just because I wanted to stick within this color scheme, but I kind of wanted something a little bit interesting. I didn't just want plain white or plain neutral vellum. I want it to have some kind of design on it because there's not a whole lot of embellishment. I know from the beginning, using this super cat themed layout, I'm probably not going to use a whole lot of the ephemera just because I don't want to put a literal cat on a wedding page. And there's things like paw prints and fish and that kind of thing in the ephemera. So I'm trying to figure out what other things I can do to make this page interesting, since I know that there's probably not going to be a whole lot of embellishment at the end. But here you can see that vellum, and I'm just starting out by trying to figure out what size I need for this little die cut, and I'm going to die cut that with my little nested dies. I have not used my die cutting machine in a really long time, so I'm really happy I had an opportunity to use it. So I'm kind of using the die cutting as another technique, but you'll also see I am going to tear, and I do kind of feel like this matting every paper in a black to have that bold black outline around the edge. I feel like it's a technique in itself too. So between all three of those, that's kind of the technique I'm using for the Scrap 5. So I have my sketch, I have my technique, I'm using a patterned background, I'm using a themed collection for off theme layout. So really the only thing I have left from my Scrap 5 is to use a number as a part of a title, and I almost forget to do it. You'll see at the very end I go back and add a number because I thought I was all done and I was going through my checklist and realized I left that part out. But we're doing good so far on the Scrap 5, so really all I need to do is continue to follow the sketch. I'm following the sketch very closely, so now I have my circular piece, I have my notebook edge layer at the top, and for a third area with that vellum to create that visual triangle and kind of balance it all out, I'm just going to tear a portion to go underneath all of these layers to replicate the decorative edge that was in the sketch. So now that I have all of those three things down, I'm going to glue it all together, and now I get to embellish. I decided it would be nice to add a tag up there with the notebook edge punch. So I just go in with a black tag to glue that down, and I'm going to thread that with some black and white twine just to keep going with the black and white theme. And then I'll go through the ephemera, but you'll see it's all very, very feline themed and not a lot of stuff I feel like I can pull in for this. But I did want to pull something in off of the ephemera just because I am using this collection, and that was the challenge. So I didn't want to not use any of the ephemera, so I do end up pulling in like one sticker from the ephemera sheet that I think will go. But I knew I wanted to use this root beer float font. I love using this font with this collection. It's just so bold. It adds to that black, juicy, bold look. And I just decided to title it Rings. And you'll see at the end I pop the number 2 in front of it, because there are 2 rings, there are 2 of us getting married, so that'll be the number I end up having in my title. I think that was my plan from the beginning, but I put rings down and then forgot about the 2 until the very end, so you can see me spacing everything from the right side so that I have enough for the 2. I just completely forgot to put it on for a minute. But this alpha sheet does have a lot of asterisks as like kind of ephemera on the sticker sheet, or punctuation, however you want to use it. But since I have an asterisk background, I thought it would be nice to pull in that foam asterisk as a little decorative piece, just so there's a couple foam embellishments. But here you can see all the ephemera. It's all very cat themed, and a lot of the not cat themed stuff was lime green, and I wasn't wanting to pull in the lime green, so I was stuck for a minute. And then I realized there's this one little pink bird, and I feel like although cats aren't wedding themed, I feel like birds can be, because, you know, love birds and, you know, whatever. So I'm using it. Little pink bird. I'm just going to create a little fishtail banner for the bird to sit on in the black. I think this little black banner helps balance the black tag at the top of the page. So I'm just cutting that into a little fishtail and having my little pink bird sit there. I wanted some kind of pink within the embellishment because I have the pink background and nothing else is pink. So I think the bird helps with that too. But I'm really trying to go through all of the ephemera, and it's either lime green or it's really off theme. So that's as far as I get. I think I do pull in like a pink heart from the sticker sheet too. But yeah, I gave up after that. I did find a little black, I think it says ceremony on one of my Fancy That sticker sheets. I did want a word sticker somewhere, but none of the words from that one worked. This is where I go back and add the little number 2. So that's my scrap 5. It was pretty quick, just trying to use that collection for a wedding, which was trickier than I thought, but I had a lot of fun. Make sure you check out everyone else in the description who's playing along with scrap 5. If you play along yourself, make sure you tag us on Instagram, #scrap5. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.